What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC fight night happening in the Apex, Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov. The card is actually pretty nice. I mean, when you got Roxanne Modafferi versus Lauren Murphy, who could be the next challenger for Valentina Shevchenko, early in the prelims, that's a pretty good card, man. You got Max Roskopf. I apologize, I don't know how to pronounce that last name. He's an outstanding wrestler from North Carolina University, up against Austin Hubbard. Unfortunate for Hubbard, it's the second credentialed wrestler back-to-back after fighting Marco Madsen. Frank Camacho versus Justin James is going to be an exciting fight, but we are going to start with Jim Miller versus Roosevelt Roberts. I am excited about this fight because I'm pretty high on Roosevelt Roberts. I see a lot of talent as he progresses his skill set, and this is going to be a major test in his career. Jim Miller has fought pretty much everybody. He is one of the most experienced lightweights to ever compete in the UFC. Now, a lot of people are going to see that Roosevelt Roberts, being the younger fighter, he's going to have a lot of the advantages when it comes to the attributes, which is obvious, right? As well as maybe even the skills. But I will say on the ground, Jim Miller is going to have the overall advantage. I think he's a higher level grappler. He's a higher level BJJ practitioner. He's been doing it for a lot longer, and his skills have never regressed. And when you look at his last 3 fights, they have all been by first round submission under 3 minutes, right? That's talking about Clay Guida, who at one time was known for his submission defense, Jason Gonzalez and Alex White, who are big lightweights, man, huge for the weight class, that will reflect the size of Roosevelt Roberts being 6'2" and having a major reach advantage. So it does show that Jim Miller has been quite comfortable fighting these bigger guys, and he's still very skilled at submitting guys with a good guillotine choke, and especially that rear naked choke, man. He has great control on the ground, getting the back even on longer, taller fighters like Gonzalez and Alex White, and he has terrifying ground and pound when he gets into full mount. But I will say that Roberts has the overall advantage on the feet. His boxing is far superior, is a glaring advantage in this one. He puts combinations together, especially when he has the opponent up against the cage, almost like a Diaz brother, but with more speed, more power, maybe not the same level of technique and targeting of the punches, but it is an overwhelming boxing style that he has. But he has to get you backing up a bit, and that is what is going to happen to Jim Miller most likely. Jim Miller is used to the fighter backing up these days, and on the cage, man, he's not going to find too many answers. Yes, he can find some leg kicks. Moving backwards is going to be tough, and they are in opposite stances, so shin-on-shin collision is going to be a lot more frequent. But in general, Roberts does not check leg kicks. The low calf kick is going to be a very good weapon for Miller, but I would like to see Roberts, I mean, he has the stance to check them. He has that narrow, tall stance where he could just lift his leg up, lift his knee up, or just turn it into the kick. He's focused so much on his boxing and his takedowns and his submissions. If the opponent tries to break his pressure with their takedowns, the kicks are just never focused on, defensively or offensively, and that can hurt him in this fight. And another thing that can hurt Roberts is his boxing defense, the way he goes about it. He doesn't move his feet much. He uses more trunk movement and head movement. And because of that, he's leaning away from punches a lot more. This defense can be triggered by the big left hand of Jim Miller, but Miller uses that fake to go for a takedown on now the exposed legs and hips of Roosevelt Roberts. But my overall prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Roosevelt Roberts, and I am going to go by a decision. I think Jim Miller's tough enough to stick the whole way through, just like he did in his last fight against Scott Holtzman, and I see him getting peppered by that right hand constantly. Roosevelt Roberts has a very quick, straight right hand. Now they both drop their power hand when they throw it, but if they meet each other at the same time, it's only going to favor Roosevelt Roberts. He's a lot faster to get away, he's a lot faster in general, and the fact that Jim Miller is going to be dropping his hand whenever he throws it, it opens up the longer straight of Roberts to connect, and I think that's going to avalanche more combinations on. Then we go to Bilal Muhammad versus Lyman Good. Pretty much technique versus power is going to be emphasized in this fight. Bilal Muhammad has many tools in his toolbox. He has many things to attack with, many things to defend with, and Lyman Good has that big right hand and big right kick. Pretty much how it goes. Lyman Good likes to counter a lot. He doesn't necessarily pressure too much. He's actually easily backed up because he's always looking to counter you with that big right overhand or big right straight. Feints get to him all the time. Just like in his last fight against Chance for Country, the feints just kept backing him up to the cage, and he just kept looking for the big right hand, and eventually he saw himself hit the cage, and he's like, oh, I really gotta throw something back at him. Bilal Muhammad can work with something like that very easily. He throws a lot of feints at opponents. He has some good targeting with his punches. He has a really good body-to-head rhythm that he goes with, especially in his last fight against Takashi Sato. Goes for that straight right hand to the body, left hand over the top, and things like that off of feints can really get to someone like Lyman Good, who's really looking for only one big attack. Lyman Good's right kick, whether to the body, to the leg, or to the head, is deceiving. It's extremely quick. He actually even looks faster than his right hand, and he throws it infrequently, and that is why it catches opponents, because he's not always throwing it, he's not always looking for it, and he catches opponents when they least expect it. It looks like he never gauges for it, he's just throwing it when he feels like it should land. But other than that, you never see it. You never see it with combinations, you never see it when he's pressuring, you never see it to set up something. Sometimes he doesn't even throw it in fights because it doesn't feel like it's gonna land. This all puts Belal Muhammad in a very advantageous position because Lyman Good is also not the best wrestler, he's not the best grappler. Belal Muhammad, I think, is a better grappler. He attempts a lot of takedowns as it is, and he could work with those to start landing elbows in the clinch, which does also get to Lyman Good. Lyman does settle a bit off of the clinch, and it leaves him open for some shots. And overall, Belal Muhammad has much better footwork to work with. The only thing is just don't fall into the right hand. Ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to have to go with Belal Muhammad. Obviously, the power could be a difference, the strength could be a difference. Lyman Good can eventually catch Muhammad for making some mistake, and one big mistake is what matters. But Muhammad does have a good chin, he's very tough, so I am pretty confident in his ability to take a couple shots, even if he gets into the line of sight of the right hand, and just use his overall skill set to freeze up Lyman Good, answer that right hand, take it to the ground, get into the clinch, and make it a fight of volume and activity. So I'm going to go with Belal Muhammad, I'm going to go by a decision. And then we go to the co-main event. And to be honest, it's my favorite fight on the entire card. Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos. This is Burgos' time to shine. This is his big fight that he's been waiting for against a top 10 opponent in Josh Emmett, who has beaten some really respectable opponents. I mean, Mirsad Bektic, Michael Johnson, or Carl Lamas. Those are some really good names under your belt. The Jeremy Stephens loss is what set him back a bit. I mean, he was on his way to be a top 5 fighter, and even still in that fight, he hurt Jeremy Stephens and had some good moments, and also kind of a controversial finish to it. He's looking to get back to where he was, looking to get back to that title shot, and Shane Burgos is not going to be an easy task. The size of the guy is... it's crazy to see. I don't even know how he makes 145, to be honest. He's 5 inches taller than Josh Emmett, 5.5 inch reach advantage on him, and he looks like he walks around in the 180s. I mean, it's crazy how he makes this weight class, and he has a really good chin too, so he's not really getting drained and can't take a punch because of all the weight he's cutting, and he does have very good cardio to go 3 rounds at a very fast pace. Usually he's the one that's pressuring the opponent, and that's going to be the same thing in this one because Burgos does not like to take a back step. He doesn't really move his feet back, but he'll move his head back a lot, right? And that's great to keep pressure on the opponent, especially because he has a size advantage over almost everybody in this division, but he tends to get caught. A lot of jabs get through, and a lot of straights get through. Sometimes hooks, sometimes overhands almost catch the target, but he's a lot better defending those. Those bigger attacks are usually easier for Shane Burgos to slip, and then he counters back. And this can be a key component in this fight against Josh Emmett because Emmett hits like a freight train. Every punch is to just KO you senseless. Enormous amount of power in his hands. From his jab in his last fight against Mirsad Bektic, to the overhand right he caught Michael Johnson with, to the left hook he caught Carl Lamas with. This is not a guy Burgos can just take a punch and continue his pressure afterward. One of these punches will put down Shane Burgos. In the amount of times he gets hit by these quick attacks, and even getting caught by the shots of Amir Khani, that's a scary thing to look at if he's on the same line of sight against the overhands and even the jab of Josh Emmett. But because he's able to withstand the damage and also put together combinations and put together good counter shots with the ongoing pressure that never ends, Shane Burgos is able to systematically break down his opponent step by step. And usually, they're not the same fighter in the 3rd round against him when they fight him in the 1st round. Also, Emmett has the wrestling factor for him. He's very quick, he throws a lot of feints that masks that overhand right of his, and he can fake a lot of takedowns, which is going to be another wrinkle for Shane Burgos, although Burgos just did fight Amir Khani, who is a respectable wrestler, but the difference is, Makwan Amir Khani doesn't have the same kind of striking power that Josh Emmett does, or the same kind of speed. And after Emmett goes for those blitz, and tries to land some of those big punches of his, he does tend to leave himself open. And those kind of things are going to be a lot harder to do when he's backing up. And those are opportunities for Shane Burgos to start countering and make Josh Emmett pay. But the thing is, Josh Emmett has a good chin, as well as he can go 3 rounds very easily at a fast pace as well. And that goes to my prediction for this fight. This is a tougher fight to call because I believe Shane Burgos has the talent and the promise in his boxing skills to be very technical and not take those punches, man. He tends to get way too comfortable boxing, and that's going to get him caught again, just like it did against Calvin Kattar. And because of that, I'm going to have to go with Josh Emmett in this fight. I think Burgos is going to be too hittable. Just one big right hand, and that's enough to change the whole fight. And the leg kicks are another thing to take note because Burgos does not check leg kicks at all. He sticks too much in the boxing, where some fighters are able to take advantage in other areas of the fight game. So I'm gonna go Josh Emmett. I'm actually gonna go by a 3rd round knockout. And then we go to the main event, Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov, the wrestler versus striker matchup, to where I don't think Curtis Blaydes has many things to go for in the striking. His boxing is respectable. I mean, he was able to beat JDS on the feet, which is something a lot of fighters can't do, even to this day. But Alexander Volkov has a very sharp defensive boxing game. He has really good uppercuts on the back step, a quick long jab to keep opponents at the end of his reach, and a decent check left hook as well. And the kicks from body to head is going to be a weapon of his that's going to take advantage of some of the entries that Curtis Blaydes is trying to go in with, specifically those front kicks to keep him away. But let's be honest here, if Blaydes ever gets a hold of Volkov, the fight's going to the ground. That's just what's going to be. Even though Volkov has a 76% takedown defensive rate, none of them came from a wrestler. They came from Greg Hardy, they came from Derek Lewis. Yes, a lot of them came from Roy Nelson, but Nelson is not that level of wrestler to take fighters down like Curtis Blaydes can. And Timothy Johnson, same thing. Like, this is not the same thing. And the fact that Fabricio Werdum, who is probably the best wrestler, he was able to take him down 3 times in the fight, even though it lasted 2 rounds. So that's going to go right to my prediction for this fight. I gotta go with Curtis Blaydes, and I'm gonna go by a 3rd round TKO. Also, Blaydes has really good cardio to go, I think, 5 rounds, even in 3, where he's constantly working. I mean, look at his takedown average. 6.63 takedowns per 15 minutes. That's one of the highest in the UFC period, and that's not a conflated or misconstrued stat right there. I mean, he constantly goes for takedowns, and he gets most of them against very respectable fighters with great takedown defense. Volkov, how easily he was able to get taken down by Fabricio Werdum is an alarming thing to look at. Now, it could be a factor like Dominic Reyes, right? Where Dominic Reyes was getting taken down by Volkan Oezdemir, right? But that was different because Werdum had to take down Volkov. He couldn't fight him on the feet, so it's something that Volkov should have expected, where Dominic Reyes didn't expect the takedowns from Volkan Oezdemir, as did nobody, right? I think Curtis Blaydes is going to take down the fight, even in the 1st round. It depends if he gets caught standing up because he wants to stand like he's done against Alistair Overeem and Mark Hunt and stuff, where he just stood too long trying to prove a point, and then he realized after he got hit, oh man, I should take this to the ground. I hope something like that doesn't happen to him, and he just sticks to what he does best and goes to the path of least resistance, wins the fight through ground and pound. And then we look at the betting odds here. So Brianna Van Buren is quite a big favorite against Tecia Torres. I don't know what's going on with Torres. There was a point where she was a top 5 fighter for like years, and she beat some really good opponents, some notable wins, and then all of a sudden she's on a 4-loss streak. And it seems like her head's not in the game. Maybe outside factors, relationship stuff may be getting in the way of her progression in fighting. But I do see Brianna Van Buren winning, although I think a very sharp Tecia Torres should put up a competitive fight against Buren. They do have a very similar skill set and a very similar style, so it's going to be a speedy fight. I am actually surprised Bobby Green is that big of a favorite against Clay Guida, because Green does not have the grappling Guida does, doesn't have the wrestling Guida does, and even in the striking, he's very vulnerable. He tries too much of the Philly shell, and he just gets caught because it doesn't work the same in MMA like it does in boxing. And Clay Guida does have power. He stunned Jim Miller with 1 shot before he got finished, and he did finish off Joe Lozon as well. Even though those guys don't have the best chin, Bobby Green has been knocked out plenty of times. Even if you think Bobby Green is going to win, I think everybody has to agree those odds are pretty crazy. I can see Shane Burgos being the favorite against Josh Emmett because of the trajectory of their careers and a lot of promise for Shane Burgos, as well as a size factor in that fight. But I'm just going to go with Josh Emmett. I'm going to lean toward his direction, although it would be amazing if Shane Burgos wins that fight. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to thumbs up, enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.